Good afternoon, everybody. Dr. Alex Vasquez here, coming to you live from the beautiful Florida beachfront. And right now I'm going to spend a few minutes looking at this conversation between Tucker Carlson, or Carlson? Carlson, sorry. Tucker Carlson and this medical student guy, Kevin Bass, I think his name is. And so, for context, Kevin Bass recently wrote an opinion article that was published in Newsweek, basically saying that we in the medical world made a lot of errors and that we shouldn't repeat those errors. Oh, and then also these errors were only for a limited period of time. So we were perfect before. We made a few errors. And then we'll be perfect in the future. And that seems to be the take-home message, similar to the recent call for amnesty, pandemic amnesty, for all the errors that were committed that resulted in millions of ruined lives and or deaths. So let's see what Tucker Carlson's going to say. I have a neutral or slightly negative opinion of Tucker Carlson. Sometimes he's a complete corporate shill. A lot of times he says what people on the right want to hear, no matter how completely stupid it is. He totally panders to the right. I mean, he's never going to do kind of like a tough love thing where he says, look, you people on the right, you've all fallen into a trap of bullshit and you need to get yourself out of that. He's never going to offer a correction to the right. He does tell them what to think and kind of acts as a pacifier for the right. And he was also a pacifier. Well, he's been a pacifier. I won't give any specific examples unless I include a video clip, but he is kind of a pacifier for the right, basically.
It is not a matter of debate. If some people have the bad taste to raise the question of the truth of the sacred story, the keepers of the faith do not enter into debate with them. They ignore them or denounce them as blasphemers.
It is wrong, blasphemous, and sinful for you to suggest, imply, or help other people come to the conclusion that the U.S. government killed 3,000 of its own citizens.
And the other thing that I think is just funny, and we'll see if he does it in this video. I haven't watched this video, so we're doing this spontaneously. The other thing that he does is he's funny because he contorts his face like he's confused or like he's really innocent and he's trying to figure out the truth. So he puts on this funny face as if he's, just so puzzled by whatever it is that he's trying to figure out. It's kind of an act that he does, but let's see if he does it. Again, I haven't watched this. It's 4 minutes, and let's see if we can get through it without too much of my excess commentary.
Well, there's really no institution in American life that had higher trust than healthcare and now has lower trust after a couple of years of COVID. The entire sector has been gravely discredited for obvious reasons if you've lived here since 2020. But what's interesting is that very few people who work in the healthcare sector seem to understand this, and certainly no one has apologized. We bring in tonight one notable exception. Kevin Bass is a medical researcher. We don't know what his politics are. He doesn't seem like a right-winger or anything at all.
Okay, so with all due respect, but also with respect for what this guy has done, but also, come on, let's respect the world of legitimate researchers. This guy has 2 publications that I've seen on PubMed, and maybe he has others. For example, like I've got what I call, 50 to 100 good articles I've written, but only, maybe 14 or so of them are on PubMed. This guy only has 2 articles on PubMed. One, I think he's the second or third author. And the other paper, he's author number 38 out of 40. So, in the hierarchy of researchers, this guy's barely a researcher. When you compare him to other researchers who have hundreds of publications, or even dozens or whatever. But I mean, 2 publications. One is a secondary author or a third author, and then the other is author number 38. I mean, I don't even know how you can fit 38 authors on one paper. In contrast, like I said, I've got 12 or half a dozen, or no, not half a dozen, but I've got 12 or so articles published on PubMed, but I'm the lead author on all of them. And even the ones where I'm not listed as the lead author, I still was the lead author.
But he just wrote one of the remarkable pieces we've seen this year in Newsweek.
So this article is only remarkable because it's another pacifier being thrown to the people so they'll shut up and move on. But like I said in my critical review that I just did in video recently, the article doesn't do anything. So, you know, an adult level apology is acknowledging the apology clearly. I'm sorry for this. Here's what I did wrong, and here's how it affected you. So it's apology, accountability, a literal accounting of what happened, describing what will be different in the future. In the future, we won't do whatever we just did. So I promise not to do this again. That would be the most basic form. But the fourth component of an adult level apology, or a legitimate apology, is that it has to include some action, some recourse, some repair. So the repair would be, if you lost your job and your home, we'll support you through that process because we know that our policies created that loss for you. That would be taking responsibility. We will create laws to restrict the power of the FDA and the CDC. We will declare our country free from the World Health Organization. That's what an adult legitimate apology would look like. Just saying we made some mistakes in a short period of time. We didn't make mistakes before. We made a few mistakes. They could have been individual errors. And then we promised to not do it again in the future. That's not an adult level reparation for this catastrophe that's gone on for 3 years and is still going on and is set to occur again. That's the other thing, as I started to just mention. They can say, oh, well, we promise not to do it again. But if they don't do anything concrete and legit to prevent it from happening again, this entire thing could happen again tomorrow.
Admitting that his entire business got it wrong. It's time for the scientific community to admit we were wrong about COVID, and it cost lots.
So this guy's an MD, PhD student, and he's appointing himself, or he has been appointed, to be the voice of the entire scientific medical community. He hasn't even graduated from medical school yet. He doesn't have his PhD. All due respect, he's working on it. But I mean, come on. Some of us have more than 20 years of clinical experience and multiple levels of expertise. So how in the world did this guy get pulled out of nowhere to be the voice for the entire medical profession? And furthermore, why is Tucker Carlson going along with this narrative?
Lives. God knows what the effect of that level of honesty will be on his career, but in the meantime, we're happy to have him join us now. Kevin Bass. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for writing this piece, which I want to recommend to everyone. Totally non-political. Again, I don't even know what your politics are. I assume you're liberal, but you're honest in this piece. Why were you moved to write this?
So that was Tucker Carlson just giving this guy a blank check, kind of endorsing him as being a neutral voice, even though he quite obviously defends and kind of protects Trump within this article, which was totally out of place and totally unnecessary. So again, this is not politically neutral. It wasn't written in political neutrality. It wasn't written with any level of social, intellectual, political, medical professional responsibility. And now Tucker's going to give this article, which is basically a blank check to hold no one accountable and let this happen again. Tucker's going to give this a multi-million person audience.
Well, for many of the reasons that you discussed, that I realize that we have lost trust in this country as a healthcare industry from the ordinary person. Anybody who knows, anybody who's watching the media, anybody who is on social media and is talking to ordinary people realizes just how angry so many ordinary people are.
So here's Tucker Carlson doing his funny face where he acts like he's confused and he just wants to get to the truth, man. I'm just a normal guy. This is his act. Tucker Carlson's act. I've only watched a few videos from him in the 20 years he's been on Fox. But he does this funny, confused face like, man, I'm just an honest guy. This is what he's trying to represent. He's trying to represent that he's an honest guy, just wants to understand this. And again, this guy came out of nowhere, and now he's the representative for the entire medical profession. And again, with all due respect, he hasn't even graduated from medical school yet. So how'd this guy get selected for this job?
And I felt that if I wrote a piece like this, apologizing for, I didn't set policy, but I certainly supported it, and every single day I certainly patted all my friends on the back for supporting it and for thinking the right kinds of thoughts. I thought if I apologized, then at least I was doing my part to make things better. And as we know, change starts one person at a time. So that's why I wrote the piece.
Amen. It's such an honorable.
So change starts one person at a time. Tucker then chimes in with amen, calling it honorable. So just, come on. If you're a lefty liberal, this is slanted. If you're a righty conservative, you have to see what's going on here.
And difficult thing to do. I was so very,
it was difficult, and he was so something.
very impressed by your
He was so very impressed. I thought this article was complete pharmaceutical propaganda.
piece for exactly that reason. If we're going to say change starts one person at a time, the first thing we should all do is apologize for what we've done wrong, but no one ever does. And if we're going to say change starts one person at a time, the first thing we should all do is apologize for what we've done wrong, but no one ever does.
So, apologize. Okay, well, it's an empty apology. It's an empty apology.
Did you, and again, we don't have time to go through all the different things, but you basically hit everything from masks to vaccines to the lockdowns. Are you worried, since you're a younger man still in school, are you worried about the effect of this piece on your career?
He shouldn't be worried, because what he did, whether he wrote it or somebody else wrote it and he put his name on it, whatever happened, we don't know. But in a sense, he's got nothing to worry about, because this is kind of a decoy piece. Again, it's admitting, on the one hand, he's speaking for the entire medical, and he says this in his article, that he's speaking on behalf of the medical and scientific community. Again, he hasn't even graduated yet. He's got 2 publications. But somehow he's been appointed to be the spokesperson. Or let's say he appointed himself. But he's not. I mean, his opinion has no weight whatsoever. So this is just a zero article with no meat on the bone, no concrete impact. And yet, again, it's getting national attention, and even more national attention thanks to Tucker.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm saying something that's not going to be very popular. A lot of people don't understand this point of view.
So this is called false rebelliousness, right? Oh, man, this guy's such a rebel for apologizing. His apology has no weight and no importance whatsoever, except to serve as a pressure release valve for the people who are going to fall for this.
When you talk to especially a lot of older individuals, including some people I admire greatly for all sorts of other different reasons, including great scientists, they often don't understand what I'm doing. And so, but some of the younger generation does, and there are many people within the healthcare industry who do understand. So I think if I just speak the truth, which is what I'm trying to do, just speak the truth, and I do so with a pure heart, that's what I'm here to do.
Okay, great. Well, everybody can say they do whatever they do with a pure heart. That's kind of a plea to authenticity, so to speak. So, yeah. So again, this article is actually quite complete in his listing without any citations. And sometimes it's a little vague, but sometimes it's actually quite specific. His article is quite specific in its listing and indexing of a lot of errors and a lot of the consequences. But again, with zero action to back it up. So anyone can apologize for anything in the world. Anyone can apologize as long as they don't have to be accountable to any action. You know, imagine the most horrible crime against humanity that you can think about, you know, like mass murder, fascism, Nazis, Spain's fascism, Germany's Spain's fascism, Germany's fascism, Italy's fascism, mass graves, Cambodia, Vietnam, all these big tragedies that, you know, killed millions of people. Think of all of those, and then think of the person responsible saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, mistakes were made for a limited period of time, and we won't make those mistakes again, I promise. We were good before, we made some mistakes, we'll be good in the future. And no accountability, no reparation, no refund on the $14 billion that Trump says he spent on these vaccines that could have gone to education, jobs, infrastructure. Anyone can say, I'm sorry, like they're 5 years old and have no accountability and no responsibility.
I wonder why this hasn't occurred. And again, for the third time, bless you for doing it. But I wonder.
Oh, you'll notice, and you have to have seen it already, but you'll notice Tucker Carlson uses a lot of kind of right-sided religious dog whistles in a sense, right? So amen and bless you and terms that have a religious connotation, right? He's trying to speak to a specific audience.
Why it hasn't occurred to senior people in this business, maybe people who ran, I don't know, our medical agencies, to do the same? I mean, that would do a lot for the country, don't you think?
No, it wouldn't do a lot. It would get them off the hook so they can do it again with no accountability. All the infrastructure is still in place to repeat this tomorrow if they want to.
I think it would do, it is a necessary thing to happen for this country, for us to have a reckoning about this particular issue so that we can restore trust. People will remember this for the rest of their lives.
No. A reasonable adult person who's healthy and not codependent and not in Stockholm syndrome, a reasonable adult who's healthy does not quote unquote, restore trust. That's what he just said.
Issue so that we can restore trust. People will remember this for the rest of their lives.
If my trust has been violated by a person, an organization, I'm not responsible for restoring trust. I'm not responsible for forgiving them. I'm not responsible for moving forward. They are responsible for making amends. If they don't make amends, then that actually if they don't make legitimate amends, then that actually reinforces my sense of lack of trust. It confirms that I'm right in not trusting these people who violated the situation at one point and then never made appropriate amends. That confirms my mistrust. And he's saying we have to move forward, but he's putting the responsibility on the public to move forward.
For this country, for us to have a reckoning about this particular issue so that we can restore trust. People will remember this for the rest of their lives. I think the reason that the people who are in charge of these institutions don't do such a thing is because they're surrounded by a bunch of people who all think very similar to them. They're not really being exposed to ordinary people on a regular basis. They're in an echo chamber. They're patting each other on the back all the time. And for that reason, they're in an echo chamber.
So in 2018, 2019, I did write an article called The Pharmaceutical Echo Chamber. I'll show you the image from that. But it basically diagrams what he just said, and that is these people live in a pharmaceutical political bubble that feeds on itself with political power, pharmaceutical sales, drug company profits, and that feeds into medical education, medical journals, and the whole, multi-million, probably multi-billion-dollar advertising industry for pharmaceutical products, which then influences every level of journalism, because every level of journalism that's running drug company ads wants to also groom the audience with drug company friendly articles. And if you want to see some of the worst examples of that, look at the British Medical Journal, and also look at The Guardian, which is a tabloid newspaper published out of the UK.
They can't see anything but their own perspective. In fact, it's been politicized. So everybody with the other perspective is in the other political party. So then you have the whole other dimension where actually alternative views get demonized. So it's they're entrenched, and there's a lot of polarization. So I think that's the reason. It's going to take a long time.
Can't come too soon. And yours is the first step of this piece. Kevin Bass, thank you so much.
Yeah, that was totally worthless. That was a total zero. That was a total zero. Nothing happened. That's a non-event. A complete non-event. And it went out so Newsweek sent it out to their readership of however many, and their website. I'm sure it's probably reached millions of people by now. This was on, I assume it was on YouTube. I just got the video off of another platform. But obviously Fox News reaches millions of people. So look at how they're trying to shape public opinion by providing this pharmaceutical pacifier of empty apology and no action. Nothing has changed. And, here you have Tucker Carlson saying, bless you and amen. And he said something else, like this was noble or honorable or something. So, yeah, I think that's totally worthless. I mean, this is totally empty, totally empty. It's a pacifier. It's a decoy. So that's my opinion as fast as possible. Dr. Alex Vasquez, inflammationmastery.com, healthythinking.substack.com. Thank you much. See you soon.